Alright, before I get started, here's a disclaimer about this video. I don't recommend you do this. This is what I did, but I don't want you to sue me, so don't do this at home. I recommend you do not do this, but I'm going to show you what I did. It's only for me, it's not for you, so don't do it. That's just my disclaimer at the front here. So, alright, so if you remember from our previous videos, we've been cutting this 1/8 by 3/4 inch bar stock in the Rage 4 Evolution chop saw, cutting these small sections off. Well, when you cut these sections off, sometimes the blade, because I have a stop block here, I don't have it in right now, but the blade will kick this around. So sometimes it kicks it towards you, so usually I put my hand here to block it. It's not really dangerous, but sometimes it'll kick it in, and then you can see when I zoom in here, it actually bent up this part of the fence. So this is really not that great of a design. We'll zoom in on it in a second, but if you look at the fence now, you can see that it's not flush with the base anymore. There's a big gap down here. So this section is bent up. So if we come over here, we can see. That's not a good angle. Sit down lower here. You can see that this little narrow section here isn't really strong enough to handle the forces hitting this part of the fence. So we've got to figure out a solution. So the solution I came up with was to drill a couple holes in this part of the fence right here. This part of the fence. Drill a couple holes and put some bolts in here to hold this down so it doesn't kick up when the material is cut. So I thought about using a 1/4 inch. Using a 1/4 inch bolt, but this is only about a little over 1/2 inch wide, so I think that would make it too weak. I'm going to go with a number 10, which is this one. I'm going to go with the number 10, which is 3/16. So we need to drill some holes in there, but we can't really get the drill in here straight because we're going to hit this thing. So we're going to have to take this off the base and drill it from the bottom. That'll be interesting. And while we're at it, the way this base is set up, all the cuttings get trapped underneath the base and it's a little hard to get out. There's a gap over here. So I'm going to be cutting a slot. Once I have this base off, I'll cut a slot in the wooden base so that the shavings from the cuts can go down out the bottom. So we'll get a pencil, make some marks here, and then once we have this off, we'll drill some holes and use the jigsaw to cut a slot. So I'll show that later. All right, so let's get this thing off the base, and then we'll proceed after that. Alright, so we got the saw off the base, and these are the marks I made with the pencil. So I'm going to take my largest Forstner bit, which is 1 3/8, and cut a hole at each end of this slot, and then we'll use the jigsaw to cut out the slots. There'll be a slot in the base, but it should be plenty strong enough to still support the saw. This isn't that big of a deal. So, got my safety glasses on. Just start here, making sure we clear the workmate. It's bolted into the workmate, so. All right. So there's probably some tear out on the other side, but a Forstner bit does a good job of making a nice clean hole. So we're not really worried about tear out. We're not making a furniture piece. So we'll cut out this side. I'm going to go a little farther because the blade's going to be kicking stuff out this way. So we'll go a little farther, make sure we don't hit the workmate. Alright, so this is a carbide tip Forstner bit. If I can, I only buy carbide bits because I don't like sharpening stuff, so this lasts a lot longer. Alright, so we'll clear this shavings away, and we'll just draw some lines in between the edges of the hole, and then we'll come back with our jigsaw and cut this out. So Alright, we're ready to make our cut. We got a trusty old Black & Decker jigsaw with a wood cutting blade, fairly fine tooth wood cutting blade. So this side will be fine. This side we're going to run into this fence, so we'll go as far as we can, and then we'll use our crosscut saw to finish it off. So. Alright. Okay, that's it for that side. We'll go the other side. Well, that's as far as we can go with this. Finish off this cut. Just like that. Alright, now we have our slot. We'll get some sandpaper and smooth this out. So we're all set with our slot. Now we're going to work on drilling the holes in the fence of the chop saw so we can fix that. Just going to use my sanding sponge to smooth this out a little bit. This is really handy. It's a little spongy thing with some sandpaper grit, kind of a medium fine grit. Let's see what the bottom looks like. That's actually, see the Forstner bit did a really good job at making a clean cut there. There's very little tear out, just a little teeny bit over here. So, all right, so that's it for this. On to the chop saw. All right, to start with, we're going to have to remove the fence so we can straighten it out because it's bent. So we need to release this lever here. I haven't done this before, so let's see. That just comes off. Okay. Then we gotta get a socket on that, but the other side is removed with this Allen wrench. It's a metric. It's like about 6 millimeters. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but. Okay, so this comes off like this. So this fence is designed to be moved forward and back. It can be in this back position. That doesn't really work. I'm cutting pretty narrow stock, so it doesn't really come into play for me. So now we need to get a socket, obviously a metric socket for this. So I'll be right back in a second. Alright, so this is a 17 millimeter socket. Or bolt. Just loosen it. On the bottom, now it's not sure it's drilled. Okay. All right, so this just comes off. So you can see now how bent this thing is. So we're going to pound this out on the vise, on the little mini anvil on the vise. And probably put it in the vise to straighten it out. And then we're going to drill our holes and put some bolts right in here to keep this down so it doesn't bend up. So you can see how thin this is right here. This is really not a very great design. All the other chop saws I've had, I mean, they have a fence on each side of the blade, but both sides are always bolted down. This side doesn't have any attachment points. They should have made this base a little bit wider and put another bolt hole over here. I think that would have been a better design. So, all right, so we'll straighten this out and then come back and figure out how to drill our holes from the bottom.